Thanks. Sure. Thanks, everybody. Hey, Martin, how are you? Speaking of seeing people at conferences I haven't seen in a long time. So, messaging is very popular. How many of you texted somebody today? Raise your hand. How many of you have texted somebody in the last 3 days? Raise your hand. Okay. How many of you sent a picture to somebody in the last couple days? See? So, all right. And how many of you were at the store and sent a picture to your wife to say, are you sure that this is the right thing I got to get? Yes. Okay. Well, it's become a pretty critical application and service in our culture as well as worldwide. And so I'm just going to give you a little history of what's going on with messaging, kind of where it's evolved, and some thoughts about where it might end up when we have these wonderful 5G networks. Now, and as Martin will attest, messaging's been around for over a decade. It really, we could do one-way messaging at the beginning of the 2000s. I distinctly remember having a conversation with a guy said, man, we're going to be able to do two-way messaging. And I was like, are you kidding? Nobody's going to want to type hi with that, 12-digit pad. And then, how many million button presses, how many billions of button presses later? And, all right, did we get messages? Asynchronous messaging is exceedingly expedient and it's very popular. How many people like to send that quick text while they're on a conference call saying, is this for real? Yes? All right, how many of you have had your coffee today? All right, and how many of you are excited to be here? Okay, I got to tell you, this is the first time I got to talk on a Tuesday at Real-Time Communications. I'm very excited. Well, it lowers the barrier to communication. You think about it, you talk to somebody personally, face to face, you have to deal with their facial expressions. Maureen's always very nice to me, and she's very polite, so she's great to talk to. There have been times when I've talked to Martin and it's been a little more direct. But I send a text, hey man, I don't know what his reaction is. I don't know if their person's like, yeah, or jumping around or whatever. So it makes it easier. It also allows to multitask, right? You can have 3 or 4 conversations. If any of you have children or even yourself, sometimes you've got 3 or 4 people you're talking to in text or picture messages, and you can just keep those conversations going, which is very hard face-to-face. The inexpensive SMS roaming rates in the States really, I think, drove SMS, at least in North America. Certainly, the inexpensive roaming rates for GSM customers coming from Europe and roaming also drove SMS as well, but not so much MMS. MMS has been expensive, at least outside North America, so it didn't catch on as well. And again, this is messaging driven by the carriers. It was built into the analog standards. It was built into the CDMA 1X and CDMA 2000 standards. So you could send pages or get them on the page, get them on a traffic channel and deliver that message. So feature phones, limited capability. You could send a, 320 by 240 picture, and it was like, wow, that looks really cool 10 years ago. Now, not so much. So then we get smartphones. This is great, man. They continue to support carrier-based messaging. They CDMA networks. If you got a GSM phone, you can. This is where SMS over SIP started to really come in. iPhone 5 specifically was at least one place in my personal experience where we really started to see two-way SMS over SIP, at least implemented. And we've seen a lot of that other thing. The ready access to data on these networks also allowed the alternatives to become more available from a portable perspective, right? If I could keep a data connection up, all of a sudden now the OTTs, the over-the-tops, can now start to come into the messaging space a little bit. Now, okay, another historical thing. How many of you used AOL Instant Messenger 10 years ago? Or were texting your friends on a PC, right? Motorola used to have, a long time ago, Motorola came out with this device that was out, I think, 6 months total. And it was a device you could use in your house that would allow you to use your instant messenger client on your PC while you were sitting at your table. And since most people had desktops at that point, that was really awesome, except it didn't go anywhere. But it sounded cool at the time. Yahoo Messenger used to be very popular. Skype is big. It's encrypted. People use it. Google Talk and Hangouts, you just saw that. It's not just for video chats. You can do regular text-based chats there too. For those of you here, how many of you have a company-based IM client that's within your company only? Or like you have a Jabber, internal Jabber client? Yeah. So you can get to your coworkers, it stays within your network. Theoretically, it's left alone. People aren't getting in to look at it. Who knows what WikiLeaks is doing? You never know. They seem to be looking at not quite everybody's stuff, but a lot of people's stuff. The other thing to point out here is gaming apps and other apps have had built-in text clients and IM clients for a long time. This goes back to things like, I have World of Warcraft up here, but if, any of those computer-based games for the longest time, especially if it was a cooperative game, you could send those messages to your friends and go get that bad guy or go over here, that kind of stuff. Certainly in the built-in audio is a big help of that, and built-in video too, but everything has had some way to communicate via text. Now, as we go to the situation where the network is always available, right? And that really drives a lot of the behavior and expansion of messaging applications. As we've gotten access to first 3G networks, which are okay, but then 4G networks, LTE, plus you've got a Wi-Fi radio in your device, you're connected all the time. Or specifically, your device is connected all the time. So, and as data prices have dropped, people feel less and less worried about, sending all those picture messages or sending those texts. I know in our house, there's a lot of data usage by my children. And this summer, the one was at a camp where he had no Wi-Fi access, but he uses Snapchat incessantly. And all of a sudden, we were getting warnings on our data for our family data plan. But he's not thinking about it. He's got access to the network. I can send pictures. I don't care how big it is. It's all good. At the same time, the cost of messaging from the carriers has also driven an expansion of OTTs. One of the reasons why WhatsApp has been so incredibly popular outside North America is it's been free, or it's $1 for a year. And all of a sudden, if you can convince your family and friends to download WhatsApp, which is a free download, now you got that easy way to text those people internationally, and you're not paying the international roaming rates. Well, that's very compelling. It's a very compelling thing. You look at some of the other things like Line and Kik. Kik's another free messaging app. More popular outside the U.S., but still, drop the price, people are going to use it. The challenge here, and this is where the availability of smart devices and the storage capacity in the device against the network being available, now you don't feel too bad about having multiple apps downloaded, right? Can you imagine having a flip phone and having to go through some sort of brew client to get to, a second or a third messaging app? There was no way. You would have paid $1 million for, not $1 million. You would have paid lots for the data, and nobody would have used that. Now, WhatsApp is free. Your data rate's low. Oh, you've got 64 gig on your iPhone 7. Well, and you figured out a way to get around the headphone jack thing. And, okay, this is a joke. Okay. But you have an iPhone, okay, say you have an iPhone 6, whatever. Haven't upgraded yet. But, you've got 3, 4, 5, 6 apps on your phone. It's no big deal. You're getting push notifications from all of them. You can text to all your friends. Oh, I can talk to my buddy. I met this guy, hypothetically, or I used to work with a guy, he moved to Australia. Well, I could text him through WhatsApp. Well, I got another friend who lives in Germany. I can use, something else for that. It makes it very easy. Now, we've talked about this, and Dean, I know your stance on RCS, and you can talk about that during your keynote 2 days from now. But SMS and MMS are evolving to RCS, right? It's a big driver. It's been slow to be adopted. Everybody knows that. You know, there was the 5 carriers in Europe who went to RCSE, and yeah, I know. And Metro PCS went to RCS actually to save RF bandwidth before they were required. You know, the nice part though is that there are benefits in RCS that over and above SMS and MMS that, you know, you get faster delivery times, especially for MMS and some other things. You know, again, the early releases got split between RCS E1.2 and RCS 5.1 here in the States. It was all continent-based, you know, a lot of people using presence in North America, the car carriers using SIP options in Europe. So, you know, it forces people to put a lot of effort into interworking between those two types. Okay, what can I send? Is that a text-only based device that does file transfers for media, multimedia? So if I send a picture, I have to go into a file transfer chat or file transfer connection to get the picture down versus group chat allowing multimedia within the chat. You know, some differences there that require a lot of interworking. You know, but for messaging in RCS, there's this baseline set of features, right? You've got pager mode and large message mode. You know, the nice part about large message mode over MMS is that in MMS, you send a notification, the device has to go to the server, establish HTTP connection, and then do a get to get the message. In large message mode, you can just push the message. So it's actually faster to get them the message that way. You got typing indicator. You can overcome that with your service if you're an operator, probably, but you know, RCS gives you that built-in typing indicator. And people, you know, in IM, you'll engage with somebody and stay engaged in that discussion if you see the bubble with the 3 dots in it, right? If you've got an iPhone and you're texting your friend and you see those 3 dots and hear that little tone, which I can't, you know, say myself, you'll wait. You know, if they're not there, you don't worry about it. Multiple device synchronization and support, that's become a very big deal for a number of people. How many of you have more than one device that you message on? Okay. And the ability to share that chat across multiple devices is a really nice. I'll tell you, again, from another personal story, I was texting with my son. He was at a camp. We hadn't seen him in several days, and my phone call came in, and my wife needed to use the phone. Luckily, I could pick the chat up on my tablet and keep chatting with him while my wife took the phone call. So that was a nice thing. Group chat, a lot of people are using group chat. Right now, MMS provides that, you know, base group chat functionality because you can get all the participants in each MMS message. But when you can go to an RCS or, you know, MSRP-based group chat, it's faster, works a little better. And then finally, file transfers. If you really want to push that 30-minute video of the soccer game you were at to your buddy, you could do that. I don't know if you want to pay all the data to push the 1 gig file over, but you can do it. Unless you're on Wi-Fi, then it's fine. And again, these apps allow you to move back and forth between the networks. Now, if we're looking at the current status of RCS, you know, GSMA has been driving to RCS 6 and RCC 59. When Google acquired Jive Mobile, who was a big RCS vendor, they had their own server and their own client. You know, that really kind of shook up the ecosystem. I remember hearing a lot of people getting kind of excited, a little nervous. Oh, Google's here. We got to do something about this. And I think with their entry into this, it kind of made it pretty serious that a lot of people are going to end up going to RCS. They're pushing right now, again, for the universal profile to try and align the standards between North America and Europe so that we can make that interworking work better, make that cross-carrier work. Now, there's, I'm sure, a lot of business politics and strategy going on. I wasn't going to get into all that, but that's a good conversation over coffee if you like. One comment, and I'm not picking on Dean, but since Dean's in here, my personal opinion, and I think we've talked about this, is that WebRTC and RCS are complementary. They're not mutually exclusive. Each one can be used simultaneously, and they fill different niches. So, for what it's worth. I'll get that out publicly. We can talk about it privately later. Now, the thing about messaging apps and platforms, they're serving more than text. If you've looked at things like Facebook Messenger or iMessage or AT&T Messenger, Verizon Messages, a lot of these different things, they're doing more than just moving messages around, okay? Sure, short messages, multimedia, that's fine. Now gifting has come in. You can buy a Starbucks gift card and send it to your buddy on most of these, or a Amazon gift card or whatever. Oh my gosh, I missed their birthday. Hey, look, there you go. You can stream video. Some of the apps allow that. You know, stickers are a big deal. How many people have used stickers? Anybody? All right, so you guys know what stickers are? So stickers are those little graphics that you can insert in the thing. Sometimes they're animated GIFs, sometimes they're other things. A lot of different companies are selling their proprietary pictures so you can stick them in your messages and make it fun for your friends. My kids do this. It seems to be more of outside of the audience of the people in this room who use those. Okay. So now, although I will say I'm a big fan of Pixar movies, so when I found that Disney had some gifts, I could send some Incredibles and Finding Dory stuff. That was kind of fun to my kids. And then my kids are like, they're 20 and 17, and they're looking at me, Dad, really? Are you serious? You're 50. Services, you're betting now where they pick up the map, and you can call Uber, you can call Lyft from your messaging app. And oh, by the way, now they have your location because they've picked that up because your device has provided your GPS location, so you didn't even have to know, I don't know, I'm by IIT. I have no idea how to get here. So come on, pick me up. Oh, and they'll do voice too. A lot of these messaging apps have picked up voice. So, and again, all of these are opportunities to help with revenue generation against the messaging service, because that's been one of the things that's been problematic. Has been it costs money to put the infrastructure in to support messaging, but the pricing for messages has been wrapped into your monthly cost. So now that high value that we were getting several years ago, or the operators were getting several years ago for messaging, is kind of evaporated. So they're finding new ways to bring some money into the business. Now, the other thing that has been interesting to me is that you've seen this expansion in messaging, and a bunch of different apps have gone to different niches, okay? And so different, different ways to message with your friends, and you might use different apps with different friends, okay? So for example, everybody's used Twitter, there's a Twitter handle for the conference, get your whole statement out in 140 characters, and that's it. Originally, you think now, because you've got access to the network and broadband and all that, you might be able to send bigger messages. But I think the charm there is to, distill your message down to something short, and then people will actually pay attention to it. Snapchat, how many of you have used Snapchat? Okay, so here's my impression of the typical Snapchat picture. Ready? I drive my son to rehearsal here in the city every weekend, and invariably 10 times on the way to the city, it's about an hour drive, and 10 times on the way back, I'll see this flash in the car, be like, what's going on? And I look at his screen while I'm driving, and there's this picture of about this much of his head, and then the rest of the car, and just looking like this. I'm like, that's what you're using this for? The nice part is it's got a timer on it. Those images disappear from the originator's phone, the terminator's phone at the same time. There's an urban legend that was used for insider trading for a while. I have no idea if that actually happened, but that would be an interesting application of Snapchat. Instagram seems to be, for the very nicely composed pictures versus those crazy, face selfies. People are people are using, but those two, it's more focused on either the short video or the picture versus the text that goes with it, but you can put text and, in Snapchat, you can put all kinds of little crazy graphics. WhatsApp, it's 400 million users, and it's ubiquitous, and it's free. It may as well be free. So that's good. Kik's another messaging app. Facebook Messenger, they're really trying to, it's not WhatsApp, it's Facebook Messenger. But, it's another opportunity for you to converse with more of those friends. My guess is that there's more people in here who've used Facebook Messenger than, let's say, Snapchat. Is that accurate? How many people have used Facebook Messenger? Okay. Well, that's interesting. All right. Yik Yak was anonymous local messaging, popular with the college crowd a couple years ago. And there's others. But again, the kind of the point here is now you've got multiple apps. Each one is like focused on a niche. The overall messaging ecosystem and messages, short messages or pictures sent continues to expand and grow. But now you've got specific apps you use for specific things. If we're moving away from that one app does it all thing. The operators have gotten into the app game. Verizon has their own messaging client. AT&T has their own messaging client. I'm calling iMessage a carrier thing. It's really an over-the-top, but it interacts with the carrier systems, right? If your recipient is an iPhone, you're going to go through Apple's network. If your recipient is not an iPhone, they get the green bubble, and it goes through the carrier network. Keiko Talk is in Korea again. That one is interesting because they're expanding it with all the business stuff. You can order things, you can gift things, you can sign. It's free, but you can sign up for Plus Friends, which are like companies, right? So Apple would be one, or Pixar, Disney. So now you get messages as advertisements from those guys, and they pay Keiko Talk to be one of those Plus Friends. So another way to make some cash. Line, huge IPO this year, very popular in Japan. And again, services, getting cars, that kind of stuff. WeChat in China. Some of these, like Verizon Messages, Plus, AT&T Messages, iMessage, they support multiple devices. They support cloud backups, typing indicators, that kind of stuff. So again, you're seeing all those advanced services. In the heart of all of it, though, is this basic application of messaging. And, leave it at that. Again, now, the other thing is different populations are using messaging differently, right? If you only send text and occasionally send some pictures, you're going to use the carrier app. You're going to or the app that comes on your Android device, or you're going to use iMessage. You're going to use Facebook because that's what the people over 30 use. If you have family and friends who live internationally, WhatsApp, Line, Kik, that kind of thing. If you're a teen, you're going to use Snapchat, Instagram, Kik, some of the other ones. I found a very interesting article talking about how teens use social messaging and use social media and use messaging, and in Wired here about a month ago. If you got 10 minutes, it's worth a read. The author sat down with kids from 6 different people from different parts of the country and wanted to talk to them about how they were actually using it. And as an adult, a lot of the things that they're doing, I thought, I would never do it that way. For example, you don't send 2 Snapchats to somebody. You send one and you wait for the response. If you send a second, that's a social faux pas. I never would have picked up on that. Stuff like that. So again, leave the tools open and people are going to use them in ways you never expected. Security is a big deal. It's a big deal for messaging. I made the comment about WikiLeaks earlier, but you think about things like health applications, HIPAA laws. They require that you have security and can secure people's data. Department of Justice requests for message logs and for lawful intercept. If you get in that situation, and in a lot of cases, you want to make sure that you avoid the man-in-the-middle attack, kind of like what Chris was talking about, or you want to avoid that your data being able to be read when it's captured on the fly. So we'll use SSL or SRTP or whatever, pick your favorite, use a security protocol to encrypt the message or encrypted traffic while it's in transit, right? In some cases too, the OTTs will encrypt not only when it's in transit, because again, that's over open networks. If you're in the carrier network and you want to pick off people's text, okay, well, you got to grab it at the cell site, but then you may not get the other side of the message, or you have to somehow tunnel into their network and then be able to pick off the traffic in their network. And the carriers are very good about protecting their networks from outside intrusion. So then, but the OTTs, it's just over the internet, right? I can send packets, so I'm going to be able to get to my server and go. And, this is where that encryption is important, because you don't want that to go over the internet, as plain text. So some of the other apps that have come up, Signal and Telegram, they've got embedded in security. The Signal protocol actually got pulled into Facebook Messenger, WhatsApp, as a security protocol. It's been vetted by the by the industry, and it's been shown to be fairly secure. The other thing is timer-based, or I call them ephemeral messages. They don't last very long, a few seconds, few minutes. Snapchat's got that, Signal has it, Telegram, these other ones. And again, Facebook Messenger paid attention, and it's now as of a couple weeks ago, you can have a secure messaging chat with somebody. I think that one of the interesting things of this is I used Jabber 8 years ago in Motorola, and you could invoke off the record, which was an encryption protocol, which would encrypt the chat you were having with your coworker. I don't know if our company knew that people were using off the record, but it was a way to have that secure thing. So it's good that it's coming back in here. There's also some enterprise offerings like NetSphere, which will provide, again, secure in-house messaging to encrypt it, cloud backup, but it's separate from iMessage and the rest of it. So, and a great example here is like healthcare. You want to be able to talk about medical issues, but not release them to other people. All right, so where's messaging headed? In 5G, we've got network slices, and that will help redefine how users and applications and servers are going to interact. We'll have high bandwidth constantly available, so sending bigger videos, sending bigger files, and audio will be much more popular. We're picking up enhancements to security and encryption, so you're going to see a lot more of these applications go and implement security. But it's still going to be a hub for interaction with others and applications. We've talked about how SMS was plateaued or on the decline, and SMS has slowed down, but if you look at overall messaging has grown, especially if you bring in social media. It just keeps expanding. And as long as people can have multiple apps, you're going to see multiple sets of messages. So the other thing is, we've got bots which will interact with you. Again, this is like calling Lyft, calling Uber, other things where you can get services. It's kind of like using short codes, but now it's over the web and tied back to your service. And as we get more seamless transitions between RF networks, between Wi-Fi to LTE or 5G, or maybe it's just ubiquitous 5G, it'll make it easier to keep those chats going without the interruption. But the nice part about chat is if you get a network interruption, unless it's more than a couple of seconds, you would never know. If you're on a voice call, so that's problematic. We're going to see OTTs continue to innovate and excel in the niches. Now, this guy, Ben Evans, works for a VC out in California, and he's got a great take on this. I highly recommend you check this article out. But he's talking about how, part of the issue is that you need to look at the niche and what is it that app is actually solving for, and what does that provide to end users. And that's where you're going to continue to see that growth. The carriers are going to continue to innovate. They want to be part of this. And again, AT&T, Verizon have their own apps. Intercarrier is been shown to be less important. When SMS launched, it was very important for intercarrier to get to all your friends. If you can convince your friends to download WhatsApp, you can get to them. They probably already have it. And then finally, cloud computing. That's just expected. That's going to help with the growth of these services. Just making it easier to roll out things versus having dedicated hardware. So it's more of an operator issue. Here's some links to some things I was looking at for this. Feel free to take a look at them in your spare time. It's 10:31, and I'm between you and your coffee break. So if you'd like, we could talk in coffee. Thanks for your time today, and thanks, Chris and Maureen, for the opportunity.